Guitarist Steve Gaines was only with Lynyrd Skynyrd for 16 months, recording one live and one studio record before the plane crash that claimed his life. Yet in that impossibly short time, he created some of the most lasting and influential lead guitar work in Southern rock history. In this lesson, we're going to break down his iconic solos in the Skynyrd song That Smell, a song that showcases everything that made Steve special. We'll hit on his melodic sense, his fire, and his phrasing. And by the end of the lesson, you're going to understand why Lynyrd Skynyrd lead singer Ronnie Van Zant once said that one day the whole band would be in his shadow, and how his approach can take your playing to the next level. Grab your guitar and let's get right into that first solo from That Smell. Let me play it for you and see if I can do it justice. I decided to do a lesson on Steve's playing. I was driving to the grocery store the other day and That Smell came on the radio. Now, I've heard this song probably hundreds of times, but for some reason my brain and my ears were really open to listening, and I thought, damn, that is some fine guitar playing. I got home and started learning a few licks, and I just thought, I've got to do a lesson on this. So this song is in A minor, and the chords are moving from F to A minor. The song's at 117 beats a minute, and what I want to do is go through the licks that he plays one by one, because each one he plays is its own unique concept, and that's pretty amazing. So even in the opening lick that gets the solo going, there's already a cool idea that jumps out and surprises you, and it's what I would call octave displacement. Over the A minor chord, he plays this 9-note sequence on the A and the low E string. So he's bending D up to E, releasing it, playing C, he repeats that, then he plays D and pulls off to C before playing the A on the low E string. And then it totally feels like he's going to go down to the F at the first fret of the low E string, because the chord then goes to F, but he doesn't. He jumps up to the F at the third fret of the D string and starts the next idea from there. That's really slick. Hey, by the way, if you're getting something out of these videos, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. So the next concept he jumps to, it's a descending pentatonic sequence, descending in thirds and fourths, and he mixes in some bluesy bends to give what could be just a pattern some real soul. So here's A minor pentatonic pattern 1, and here's the concept. I'm going to descend through the scale playing notes that are either fourth or third intervals apart, so C and G, A and E, G and D, E and C, D and A, C and G again, A and E, G and D, E and C, and lastly D and A. Now this is a concept used by many great players. I've heard Stevie Ray Vaughan use it, Neil Schon used it in the Journey classic Lights, and in That Smell, Steve hits that F on the D string, slides up into A and plays C. So he just outlined an F major triad, and then he switches to A minor pentatonic where he plays the lick, and he throws in a bluesy bend at the beginning and at the end. And like I said, that really injects soul into the lick, and to me that's the mark of a master. Anybody can play a pattern, but really great players take patterns and make them musical. He does that again, making patterns musical in the next lick, and there are two concepts that I want you to take away in this phrase. The first one is turning a triad shape into a lick, and I've done multiple videos on what I call triad-based licks because I think it's maybe the best way to make your way around the fretboard while knowing the notes you play will always be melodic and correct. So the chord goes back to F, and Steve again outlines an F major triad, which with the notes F, A, and C, and then he turns the triad into a lick by playing a couple other notes from the A minor or C major scale. He plays D, F, again, and G, which he bends up to A, which is another triad note. And then he hits a C on the high E string, which gives us a cool pedal steel bend. And pedal steel bends are a big part of the Southern rock vocabulary. And after that C, we're going to release the bend back down to G and go to the E note at fret 5, which signals we're moving back to the A chord. That's an awesome resolution. And now over the A minor chord, he's going to combine two techniques that are normally not used together, something we call pedal point and more pedal steel bends. So a really famous example of pedal point would be Eric Johnson's playing in the intro to Cliffs of Dover, where he pedals, as we call it, back and forth on a G note on the high E string with D and C triads on the B, G, and D strings. What Steve Gaines does here is bend the D note on the G string up to E, and he alternates that bent note with the unison note on the B string, G, A, and C. So he goes right up the A minor pentatonic scale. And putting those two licks together, we've got this. The last concept I want to hit on in this solo is a repeating lick that he plays, and we hear a lot of repeating licks in rock and roll. Think of the way Jimmy Page ended the solo of Stairway to Heaven. And very often we hear licks like that where they're in triplets, and it gives the feeling of groupings of 3 being played against 4 time, and that creates some really awesome tension. But once again, Steve does something masterful and unique here. The easy thing and the common thing to do would be to play, say, an A minor triad with the notes E and C on the E string and the A note on the B string. That would give us something like this. Or we could make the lick a little more interesting by alternating between D and E on the high string, and that would sound like this. But Steve Gaines again goes the extra mile, and he alternates between not only D and E on the high E, but G and A on the B string. So he goes back and forth between these two 3-note figures, D, C, and G, and E, C, and A. This at first was a real finger twister and mind bender for me to learn, because people usually don't mix things up like that. So get the movements down. And then work it up to speed. And again, he comes out of that with a bluesy Albert King sort of lick to bring things home. It's just a great solo filled with uncommon ways of playing common ideas. I also want to show you a couple of lick concepts from the second solo Steve plays in the tune, because they're really great. They can be used in many different ways and places. We're just going to cover the first half of the solo, and once again, let me play it for you and see if I can do it justice. The first move in the solo is another bluesy bend. This one has a real Albert King or Stevie Ray Vaughan vibe. And I'm up at A minor pentatonic pattern 2 at the 8th position. We're going to slide into the A at fret 10 of the B string, play C at fret 8 of the E string, and bend D up to E. Bend it twice more. We're going to hit it one more time and then release it to C, and then that's the 8th fret. That's a great opening lick. It's got some real blues power. And then next comes a lick that again comes out of outlining parts of triad shapes. Steve plays this. And check out how similar that sounds to me just playing A minor and G major triads from the 12th position down to the 5th position. It's really cool how he made up a pattern using notes from the triads on the top 2 strings. And once again, it really highlights how important it is and how useful it is to have full command of your triad shapes and to be able to play through triads in any key. Now, the last lick I want to go over is a fantastic repeating lick that I believe inspired players like Slash, who used a similar lick at the climax of Sweet Child of Mine, and Steve Vai, who uses rapid fire repeating licks like this all the time. But once again, Steve Gaines adds his own bit of flair that's really different from the way that most people would play it. Here's the lick he plays, and what makes it different and really unique is how he descends and then ascends back up and ends things on a bend. Moving across strings and changing directions like that is not how those repeating licks are usually played. Like a lot of these rapid fire repeaters, this lick is sort of set up by the picking pattern. The first 3 notes are a combination of an upward sweep and a pull off. So we're going to hit the A on the E string and the G on the B string with an upward picking motion, and then we pull off to E. And then I'm going to use alternate picking to play the D on the G string, E on the B string, and then G on the B string, bend up to A. We play that lick 3 times, and then we start it a 4th time, but we're going to jump to the 8th fret of the high E string and bend a C note up to D. And as he has with all the other concepts, Steve finishes off this phrase with a bluesy A minor pentatonic lick. So, as I said earlier, I want to do a lesson on this because I heard the song while driving and it really moved me. These concepts are melodically sound in that they outline the chord changes. They're flashy, they're full of attitude, and you could use them in a rock setting, a blues setting, and a country setting. And I guess that particular combination is the musical stew that makes up Southern rock. Steve Gaines was a really fine guitarist, and he was also a great singer. It's understandable why Ronnie Van Zant thought that one day he would be bigger than the actual band. And tragically, he left this earth way too soon. Work on these concepts, get them into your playing, and build up that vocabulary. Have fun with your guitar and never stop learning. I'll see you soon.